I'm a park ranger in the US, and I've revealed 7 sinister secrets of the haunted woods. The forest calls to many, but it doesn't want you here. Who would have thought that Maplewood, Washington, with its towering pines, could harbor such dark secrets? Shadows flitted between trees, whispering terrible things as a chill gripped my heart. I'd spent years ensuring the trails were safe, but something was wrong, really wrong. There were reports of missing hikers, names fading from memory like they never existed. Legends of a curse, the kind that turned the forest into a malevolent being at night, swirled around us. I felt it deep in my bones. First, there were the markings, scratchy and unnerving, etched into trees like warnings from a time long forgotten. Hikers tripped on the roots filled with whispers, their laughter soon fading into the thickening air. Then Matt disappeared, just gone, dismissed as hiker error by authorities, a casual shrug that made my stomach twist. But I knew better. I could feel the dread creep like fog in the night, wrapping around me, pressing down. That I turned to the townsfolk. Their faces wore the years of secrets they carried. They'd seen things, the betrayal, the cover-ups. Vengeful spirits were said to roam these woods, and I felt their cold gaze resting on me more and more. It made my skin crawl. As dusk descended, I patrolled alone, the silence thick like a suffocating blanket. A rustle snapped my attention. My heart raced, pulse pounding in my ears. Through the trees, I caught sight of a figure, a ranger uniform, Matt. But when the figure turned, it revealed a twisted grin, mirthless and sick. Then, it vanished. I couldn't shake it. The forest wasn't just alive, it was watching. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. My determination morphed into an obsession, driving me deeper into the heart of the woods. I stumbled upon something ancient, a moss-covered altar dimly illuminated, and a sense of dread washed over me. This was it. Here, I would learn the truth, the 7 sinister secrets of those who shared these paths, trapped forever in the roots underfoot. The markings? Warnings, stark and clear against the bark. Don't dig too deep. Just as panic tightened around my throat, a presence loomed, a foreboding shadow that made me freeze. You shouldn't have come here, echoed through the forest, sending icy fingers down my spine. I bolted, desperation fueling every frantic step. The trails warped around me, merging into a nightmarish labyrinth, revealing nothing but confusion. The laughter echoed, blending with cries of the lost. Which way was home? Would I escape the grip of these haunted woods, or would I join the restless spirits, another mystery entwined in the terrible lore of Maplewood? Breath came in desperate gasps as I wove between trunks that loomed like silent witnesses to my panic. Each step echoed in the void, a reminder that something followed me from the depths of the dark. Every rustle in the brush turned my heart into a drum, pounding loudly enough to drown out the whispers that hung in the air like smoke. Matt, I called out, dread thickening my voice, but the only answer was the cruel wind, twisting my pleas into cruel mockery. The path beneath me seemed to shift, roots stretching toward my feet, trying to grasp and pull me into the earth. I stumbled, barely catching myself before falling face first onto the forest floor. My palms pressed against the damp ground, heart racing as I strained to listen. There was someone behind me, moving stealthily, just out of sight. The shadows flitted between the trees again, and I swiveled, catching a glimmer of pale skin against the dark. "Who is there?" I shouted, voice shaking. "Show yourself." A flicker of movement, a flash of that sickening grin. It was back, that twisted visage, laced with malice. Panic surged through me. I shoved myself up, racing ahead, dodging branches that clawed at my skin, leaving scratches that stung. Around me, the forest closed in, dimming under an ominous twilight. It wasn't just fear clawing at my throat. Dread crept into my mind, wrapping tight as I recalled the altar, the whispers urging me not to dig too deep. Was this the price of knowing? I stumbled into a clearing, my breath forming clouds in the cool evening air. But the clearing wasn't a sanctuary. It was a trap. Shadows twisted and writhed, morphing into vague shapes of men and women with sunken eyes, their mouths agape in silent pleas. I fell to my knees, battling nausea. Were these souls who had entered the woods like me, only to succumb to the darkness? Did they suffer like I was? Then, just beyond the clearing's edge, a low moan echoed through the trees, an unholy sound filled with pure agony. My stomach turned. I needed to leave, but my body felt anchored to the earth, paralyzed by the terror of what might await in the depths of the woods. Suddenly, a snap of a twig made my head whip around. The figures shifted, their heads bobbing as if sensing my presence. Their hollow eyes focused on me, pleading but also accusing. "Help us," one whispered, voice like gravel scraping against stone. Help? What could I do? I grasped at the air, panicked thoughts swirling. Should I rescue them? Or was this a siren's call, leading me deeper into damnation? I stumbled to my feet, heart racing as I backed away from the haunting scene, only to collide with something solid. Breath stilled in my throat. The figure stood just behind me, the twisted grin now inches from my face. "You're part of this now," it hissed, voice slithering down my spine like ice. I turned, adrenaline crashing through my veins. There was no time to think, no time for doubt. I bolted again, not knowing where I was running, just that I had to escape, I had to survive. Branches whipped at my limbs as if the forest itself tried to hold me back, to keep me within its terrible embrace. Would I be yet another soul lost to the Maplewood haunt? I skidded to the right, desperate to find the edge, to escape this encroaching darkness. I sprinted deeper. The laughter began anew, a chorus of spirits lost in torment, promising that I would never leave. Inescapable dread filled my chest. "I will find the truth," I vowed silently, fear hardening into resolve. But was it already too late? With the echoing laughter growing increasingly sinister, a path opened ahead. It shimmered slightly, beckoning like a mirage of safety. I hesitated. What if it was another trap? What if it led me to the heart of the curse? But I had only one choice. I raced onward, heart pounding, mind racing with the question what awaited me in the shadows beyond. And when I crossed that threshold, would I unearth the forest's final secret, or become just another lost echo in its depths? The path felt strange beneath my feet, like it was shifting with every step I took. Was that my imagination, or had the forest conspired to confuse me further? The chatter of fading laughter lingered in my ears, endless echoes of despair that swept through the misty trees, taunting me as I stumbled forward. I burst through the low-hanging branches into a narrower passage, walls of bark closing in on both sides. Cold sweat dripped down my spine, and I could feel it, the chill of unseen eyes watching me, waiting for my next move. I peered into the thick shadows, half expecting that grotesque grin to leap out at me. "Matt!" I shouted again, my voice wavering between bravado and fear. The silence that followed was suffocating, pregnant with possibilities. What if I was truly alone? The thought gnawed at my insides. Then I heard it, a whisper so faint it might have been the wind. "Help us!" It was the same gravelly voice from before, creeping into my mind and shattering my resolve. I fought against the urge to respond, to turn back and confront those lost souls. Was I really ready to shoulder the weight they bore? The ground surged upward, and I scrambled on instinct, finding myself on a rise that overlooked a darker expanse of the forest. A fog twisted around branches, giving life to shadows that slinked like phantoms. I drew in a breath, the damp, earthy smell heavy with decay. Just beyond my sight was a clearing, framed by gnarled oaks that twisted like fingers reaching for something just out of grasp. There it was again, the moan. But this time, it struck harder, a visceral sound that made my skin crawl. I clutched at the bark of a nearby tree, trying to steady myself as dread seeped through my veins. It almost sounded human. Was Matt in there? With heart pounding, I plunged into the deeper shadows, the path ahead dimming more each moment. I had to find him. I pushed through the knot of branches that snagged at my clothes, sparkling with dew like sharp fangs. And just like that, I felt it, a pull, a tugging at my senses, as if the forest was alive and more than just a backdrop of looming trees. "Help me!" The voice cried out, mingling with the wind, low and desperate. It was different now. It was not just the shadowed figures. It was something more. Rushing ahead, I entered the clearing, and a gasp caught in my throat. What lay spread before me was not what I expected. The very ground had been ripped apart, a gaping maw that seemed to breathe, inhaling the forest around it. The altar stood at the center, the stones stained with dark, ancient markings, pulsating with a sickly glow, and then I saw them, figures, contorted in agony, their faces twisted into grotesque masks of eternal struggle. They weren't merely souls, they were tethered, trapped within this cursed earth, their eyes boring into me with pleading despair. "I'm not like you," I screamed, backing away from the sight that threatened to pull me into its dark depths. But the forest shuddered, branches creaking ominously, and the laughter resumed, louder this time. A cacophony of taunts that sliced through the timbered air. Suddenly, an icy hand closed around my wrist. "You can't leave," whispered the same familiar voice, now more sinister, echoing just behind me. I whirled around, but it was too late. The face I'd long dreaded grinned wide, revealing shadows within shadows behind its hollow eyes. "You're already part of this," it breathed, and the world around me began to swirl with the energy of lost souls, the palpable weight of their despair wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. The ground trembled beneath me as the darkness surged, the clearing fading as I was pulled toward the altar. I ejected a desperate shout, aware that this might be my last moment of freedom, my final grasp at reality before the curse consumed me entirely. And amidst the chaos, I felt a tug and urge to know the truth, to break free, but also an impulse to reach for the lost souls around me. If I stepped towards the altar, would I uncover the forest's ultimate secret, or would I simply become another in the chorus of lost? What awaited me at that threshold between light and darkness? The decision loomed as heavy as the fog around me. The darkness swallowed me whole, a suffocating shroud that wrestled with my sanity. My heart hammered against my ribs as panic took hold. A raspy laugh fluttered through the air, chilling me to the bone. "The truth is waiting," it taunted, a malicious purr that coiled around my mind. I staggered back, willing myself to break free. The altar pulsed in a rhythm similar to my racing heart, a vile, intoxicating beat that lured me closer. The faces around it twisted in agony, their eyes filled with a mixture of hope and despair. They were trapped, but somehow still aware, begging for release. "Matt," I cried, but my voice trembled. Was he among them? Did he, too, succumb to this malevolence? The thought sent a wave of nausea crashing over me. Each soul's whisper grew more frantic. Their desperation clawed at my resolve, threatening to plunge me into their anguish. I turned away from the altar, determined to escape. Yet the ground lurched, almost mocking my attempt. Roots spiraled out, entwining around my ankles, pulling me back into the embrace of the cursed earth. I yanked at my feet, but the grip tightened, forcing me down into the depths of despair. "Help us!" they cried in unison, their voices melding into a haunting chorus, laced with a sorrow that felt ancient and heavy. I couldn't breathe. Each gasping breath tasted of loamy soil and lost hopes. My fingers clawed at the ground, desperately searching for something, anything to hold on to. Then the laughter returned, sharp and grotesque, echoing around me like a swarm of locusts. "You think you can resist?" The voice was no longer familiar. It had twisted into something darker, more primal. I felt a sudden flash of anger. "I'm not part of this. I didn't choose this." My voice rang out, artificial bravado masking the panic beneath. But deep down, a part of me wondered if I deserved to be here at all, tied to the fate of these tortured souls. With a surge of determination, I tore my feet free, leaving ripped soil and roots behind. I bolted toward the edge of the clearing. The shadows writhed and reached for me, desperate to pull me back. "Don't leave us," they shrieked. But I had to go. I had to find Matt. That I broke through the line of trees, the whispering pitch of voices fading, but the air was still thick with dread. The path ahead twisted like a serpent, every step echoing a silent warning. I breathed heavily, the urgency of escape fueling my flight. After moments that felt like eternities, I burst into another clearing, this one bright and alive, encroaching sunlight filtering through the leaves. Relief washed over me, but something felt off. The air was too still, too quiet. Then I saw him. Matt stood there, illuminated like a ghost, his face pale and bewildered. He turned slowly, as if waking from a deep sleep. "Cassie?" He breathed, voice trembling. Matt. I rushed to him, but as I reached out, shadows flickered behind him, coiling and slithering in the light, ready to consume once more. Cassie, help, he murmured, his voice now echoing the same tainted notes of despair I'd just escaped. His eyes darted to the darkness, creeping ever closer. They won't let me go, I can feel them, I froze, horror clenching my heart. This was more than a rescue. It was a reckoning. Was I too late? In that moment, realization struck me harder than any physical blow. The whispers weren't just cries for help, they were the very essence of the forest, hungry and deceptive. Could I save him? Or would I fall into the same abyss of despair, losing myself to the very darkness I fought so hard to escape? The choice was looming again, more dire than ever. Would the forest nourish me as a part of its lost souls, or could I shred the curse that bound Matt to its depths? Heavy silence enveloped us as the trees shifted ominously around, waiting. I can't let them take you, I shouted, but even as strong as my words were, doubts swirled like the fog that seemed to close in on all sides. In that swirling uncertainty, I prepared to leap back into the unknown. What fate awaited both of us on this razor-thin line between escape and a hellish embrace? Run, Cassie! Get away from here! Matt's voice cracked, panic driving his words. The shadows pulsed behind him, writhing like a living thing eager to consume the light. My heart raced, torn between my need to save him and the fear of being claimed by the darkness myself. Matt, I can't leave you, I screamed, my voice trembling. But even as I said the words, I felt the sinister pull of the forest of force wrapping around my thoughts, whispering doubts like venom. He stepped closer to me, stepping through an invisible boundary where the shadows thinned. You have to trust me. They're feeding on my fear. If you stay, his words stopped, an expression of horror overtaking his face. The shadows coiled tighter around his legs, tendrils of darkness slithering upward. A low growl reverberated, shaking the ground beneath our feet. I could feel my own breath hitching in my throat, each gasp a battle against the air thickened by despair. Suddenly, the ground cracked open beneath Matt, revealing a gaping chasm swirling with darkness. Help! He shouted, a panic that splintered through the silence, rattling over the treetops. Don't let them take me. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged toward him. I gripped his arm, muscles straining to pull him back. The shadows lashed out, striking my skin with ice-cold tendrils. They clawed at my mind, trying to suffocate my resolve. Hold on, I shouted, feeling my fingers weakening. Cassie! He gasped as the shadows yanked him closer to the edge. Terror flooded his face. You can't do this. They're going to drag you in too. No. I screamed again, firmer this time. I tightened my grip, fighting the panic setting in about my own fate. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. Let go, he pleaded, his voice a mix of anger and desperation now. You're part of this now. You don't understand. But I could feel it, the icy tendrils tickling my back, coaxing me into surrender. They whispered sweet promises of freedom from pain, of an escape into eternal serenity. I could fade into the darkness with him, but at what cost? With one final, desperate pull, I yanked him sideways, dislodging him from the shadow's grasp for a heartbeat. The darkness roared, furious at being denied its prize. In retaliation, the ground trembled, threatening to swallow us whole in a rumble of earth and branches. I could see it now, a thicket of twisted trees and brambles encircling us, closing in with malicious intent. Matt. I squeezed his hand tighter, trembling with fear and anger. We can fight this. But doubt clawed at my chest. What if he was right? What if this forest had chosen him as a sacrifice, and I was just another bait in its sinister game? The wind howled, an eerie song of the damned mixing with the whispers that slithered around us. We need to find a way out, I shouted over the growing commotion, dread pooling in my stomach. I could feel the pressure of the oncoming shadows, a suffocating tide pushing us toward the abyss. But we couldn't escape together. The forest wouldn't allow it. My heart sank as I came to an agonizing realization. Cassie. Matt's voice softened, eyes locked onto mine. You have to run. No, I screamed, shaking my head. I want to leave you. His expression shifted, fear blending with something else, a resignation that cut me to the core. You can't save me, he said, his voice cracking as if he surrendered to the darkness creeping at the edges of his sight. Before I could respond, he slipped from my grip, dragged toward the abyss by the merciless shadows. I stumbled, horror washing over me as I realized his sacrifice would be the key to my own escape. Matt. My heart tore as I reached for him, but it was too late. The darkness enveloped him, a serpentine grip pulling him down, siphoning away his light. In the chaos, I fell back, scrambling against the earth as thick branches reached hungrily for my legs that I crawled backwards, gasping, never breaking my gaze from the place he disappeared. My thoughts raced, and my heart thundered in the deafening silence that followed. Then, an echo of a whisper wrapped around me, chilling every bone. The truth is waiting for you. I didn't know what that meant, but I felt the forest urging me to uncover its secrets, to reveal the hidden horror that lay beneath its surface. I had to decide, would I succumb to despair, or could I fight against the very darkness fueled by the souls trapped within this cursed woodland? As I scrambled to my feet, one last question lingered in the air, dense and heavy. What were the shadows hiding, and how could I harness their power to free Matt or myself? The cold air bit at my skin as I stumbled through the dark thicket, branches scraping like skeletal fingers. I could still hear Matt's voice rippling in my memory, desperate and terrified. "Run, Cassie!" The words echoed with haunting clarity, twisting through my mind like a mantra. With each step, the shadows shuddered around me, thick as fog yet somehow alive, pulsing with a grotesque eagerness for my downfall. "Just breathe," I whispered to myself, though I felt the shaky tremors in my voice. The forest seemed to respond with an eerie sort of laughter, the leaves rustling, as if mocking my attempts to remain calm. I pressed on, desperate to escape the suffocating gloom. Flickers of movement danced at the edges of my vision, shadows darting behind gnarled trees. Was it just my imagination? Or were they searching for me too? My heart raced, a relentless drum pounding in my chest. Suddenly, a disembodied laugh rippled through the air. I froze, paralyzed by fear. "Who is there?" I shouted, but the shadows only thickened in response, swirling around me as though savoring the scent of my fear. The laughter faded, leaving a heavy silence that pressed down on me, oppressive and suffocating. Then, a soft voice pierced the quiet, barely more than a whisper. "They're hungry, Cassie, just like you are." My breath hitched. The shadows shifted toward me, hungry whispers curling at the edges of my mind. I could feel their pull, a dark temptation whispering promises of power and freedom. I staggered back, fighting the urge to surrender, knowing that giving in might mean finding Matt, but at a horrific price that I needed to move. I spun on my heel, jogging through the underbrush, thorny branches lashing against my skin. They had to be hiding something, the shadows and their cruel games. There had to be a way to turn this against them. The idea sent a chill through my spine, but I couldn't afford to think of failures or fears now. Ahead, a flicker of pale light caught my eye, shimmering among the trees like a beacon. I bolted toward it, hope igniting in my chest. As I closed in, I realized it was coming from within an old stone structure, an abandoned shelter, crumbling with age. My instincts screamed to flee, but the light was beckoning me, urging me forward. Inside, the air was thick, moist with decay. The floorboards creaked underfoot, and the musty scent clawed at my throat. I stepped into the small room illuminated by the spectral glow, revealing strange symbols etched into the stone walls. I approached them, every part of me alert to the tension in the air. The whispers intensified, both mocking and seductive, swirling around me like a storm. "Know the truth, embrace the night," they hissed, dripping with temptation. Beneath their whispers, something else rustled, like pages turning. Was it a book? With trembling hands, I reached out to touch the nearest symbol, and a jolt of energy coursed through me. A vision flashed in my mind. Matt standing on the edge of that abyss, surrounded by swirling shadows, his pleading face etched in pure terror. I gasped, stepping back, heart hammering in my chest. The forest wasn't just alive, it was a prison, a living entity that feasted on fear, feeding off the souls trapped within. And if I wanted to escape, I would need to learn its secrets. I could almost hear the ground beneath me whispering, urging me to make a choice. What had Matt sacrificed for me? "Tell me," I shouted, voice breaking against the whispers swirling in the room. What do I need to do? The symbols glowed brighter, pulsing rhythmically, and the shadows began to gather at the threshold, their growls growing louder, hungrier. With time slipping away, I realized that understanding these dark forces might be my only chance at confronting the shadows and freeing Matt. But where could I even start digging for answers? As the shadows moved closer, ready to claim me at last, the weight of my decisions pressed down like the forest itself. Would uncovering the truth mean embracing the darkness or finding a way to defeat it? A primal scream ripped through the air, a scream that felt both familiar and agonizingly far away. Matt. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't turn back. What I would find could be my salvation or my doom. The walls whispered around me, urging me to step deeper into the abyss. In the flickering light, a question formed in my mind. What if the answers I sought were hidden in the very shadows I feared the most? The shadows slithered closer, their threads stitching a tapestry of dread that enveloped me. My heart pounded like a war drum, booming in the silence, and every instinct screamed at me to flee. But the symbols pulsed with a vibrancy that entranced me, as if they knew my fears and were daring me to confront them. Matt, I whispered, the name slipping from my lips like a prayer. Hope mixed with despair, turning my stomach into a maelstrom of anxiety. The walls seemed to breathe, exhaling a thick mist that wrapped around my throat. Find the mirror, the whispers intensified, flickering with urgency. I twisted around, eyes darting, desperate for anything that might point to my next move. What mirror? What kind of twisted game was this? I could feel the shadows looming at the door, their growls now a guttural choir, harmonizing like something unspeakable. Panic surged, a raw, primal terror. I couldn't let them get too close. I had to act now. I stepped deeper into the room, leaving the safety of the light. The further I went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became, as though the darkness was weighing me down, like chains wrapping around my legs. Each step felt like wading through thick molasses, slow, heavy, suffocating. Then, at the far end of the shelter, I spotted it. A shard of glass hung crookedly from a gnarled branch embedded in the wall. It reflected the flickering light, and for a moment, it held my gaze, shimmering like a dying star. Is that the mirror? I asked out loud, my voice wavering. Look through it, or you will be lost. The voices coiled around my mind, sweet and sickly. Doubt crept in. What if this was another trap? Did I want to risk it? But an image of Matt's terrified face filled my mind, and I gritted my teeth against the gnawing fear. I took a step forward, my hands trembling, and reached for the glass. The moment my fingertips brushed the surface, a shock coursed through me, piercing like ice. The glass didn't just reflect my image. It revealed twisted visions of the forest, the shadows writhing, whispering, and beckoning. In the dark mirror, I could see branches reaching for me, twisting into claw-like shapes. It wasn't just a reflection, it was a glimpse into another world, one where I was helplessly ensnared. Look closer, the voices urged, and I leaned in, squinting, my breath hitching. In the depths of the glass, I caught sight of something else. A figure Matt was drowning in darkness, struggling against the shadows closing in. I could feel his despair pulsing through the air. My heart ached, a lead weight dragging me down into the abyss of that mirror. Help me. His voice came through, weak but clear. You have to break free. What was this? Was it a warning or a plea? Suddenly, the shadows surged forward in a twisted wave, drawn to the energy crackling in the room. They howled angrily, slamming against the door, eager to consume me. With a burst of determination, I leaned closer to the mirror, whispering, I'm coming for you, Matt. The glass pulsed, resonating with my vow, igniting a fire deep within me. The shadows screeched, lashing out, trying to rip away my focus. My breath quickened, fingers pressing against the cold surface. Embrace the truth, the whispers slithered, almost pleading. It is your only way out, but what truth? The mirror rippled, and the shadows thrashed, hungry for possession. I stood frozen between the mirror's distorted reflection and the encroaching darkness. A sense of urgency gripped me. I knew I was running out of time. Matt, I yelled, desperation clawing at my throat. I'll free you. A roar echoed as the shadows lunged, crashing against the mirror's frame. Would I break through the darkness or be consumed by it? The answer lay beyond the threshold of that glass, but the shadows were closing in. I pounded against the surface, ready to dive headfirst into both fear and revelation. Please, and as the darkness surged, I had to wonder, was Matt waiting for me on the other side? Or was it simply another lie crafted by the very shadows I longed to escape? The moment my hand broke through the glass, a vortex of darkness pulled me in, wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. I gasped, feeling the icy tendrils of the shadows clawing at my skin, dragging me further into a reality that twisted and writhed with terror. Panic surged as I was thrust into a place that echoed with horrifying whispers. Matt's name echoed in the distance. Warped and distorted, I landed in the middle of the darkened forest. The familiar scent of damp earth and decaying leaves somehow intensified. The shadows lingered just out of sight. I could feel them breathing, hungry and eager. "Matt," I shouted, voice cracking, fear tightening around my throat. Somewhere between the gnarled trees, I heard a groan, strained and desperate. It could have been Matt, but the sound sent a chill straight down my spine. "Follow the screams," the voices urged again, a chorus of disembodied whispers that dripped with malice. The shadows slid closer, pulsing with malevolent energy. I pulled my head down, hiding from their gaze, but my legs moved on instinct, carrying me towards the source of the wretched sound. Branches clawed my arms as I stumbled deeper into the woods, the air thick with a damp mist that clawed at my lungs. I could hear rustling, shadows darting just beyond my peripheral vision, watching, waiting. "What do you want?" I yelled, but the forest remained silent, alive only with the din of my heartbeat echoing in my ears. "Help!" A voice broke through, and my heart seized. It was Matt. There was no mistaking it. But it felt distant, as if he stood just beyond a chasm I couldn't cross. "I'm here," I called, desperation fueling my voice. The ground morphed beneath me, the textures shifting as the shadows laughed in muted tones. I turned a corner. The trees parted, revealing a clearing bathed in an unnatural glow. In its center stood a massive, ancient mirror, polished, smooth, and reflecting nothing but darkness. It pulsed with ominous energy, vibrating with the anguish trapped within. "No, not again," I gasped, recognizing this as the mirror that had pulled me in. "Break it," the shadows hissed, slithering through the air. "That is where Matt is trapped." "Break it? Are you out of your mind?" I stammered, glancing around frantically. "What if it just pulls me in again?" "Break it, and everything will be yours," they whispered seductively. Freedom, power, his life. I could see Matt's shadowy form beyond the glass, his face contorted in pain, eyes wide as he reached out, desperate for connection. "Don't listen to them," he cried, voice echoing, cracking like a fragile glass shard. "They're lying. Please." The moment of choice slammed into me, the air thick with tension. "Break the glass, release Matt, but at what cost?" The shadows converged around me, pushing me toward the mirror with a ferocity that left me gasping. "What do I do?" I yelled at no one, the cacophony of voices swelling, drowning out reason. Suddenly, a sharp pain sliced through my mind. I staggered back, clutching my head as visions flooded in a forest filled with anguish, people screaming, facing their darkest fears. It all connected like a twisted puzzle. The mirror was a prison, not just for Matt, but for countless others before him. "Don't let them have me." Matt's voice shattered through the chaos. I looked back, my heart clenching. He was fading, shadows beginning to consume him. I had to act. With a primal scream, I charged forward and slammed my fist into the mirror. The glass shattered like thunder, shards flying in all directions, slicing through the darkness. But as I stumbled through the fragments, I felt a pull, a violent force threatening to drag me back into the depths. I had no idea if I was freeing him or sealing both our fates. "Matt!" I shrieked, and the shadows enveloped me once more, leaving a question hanging in the air: what awaited us both on the other side of the chaos? The shards of glass fell away, dissolving into the icy fog that clung to the ground like the remnants of forgotten dreams. I stumbled forward, disoriented, the weight of dread pressing down hard on my chest. "Matt!" I cried out again, my voice ragged and desperate, as shadows curled around my ankles like greedy serpents. The clearing was gone. Instead, I found myself in a twisted version of the forest I knew. Trees loomed larger, their gnarled branches menacing and low. The whispers had intensified, shrieking a warning directly into my mind. Turn back, I hesitated, heart pounding. What do you want from me? I shouted, the words echoing in the oppressive silence that settled afterward. No reply came, only the silent threat hanging in the air, suffocating me. I spun around. Matt. But only the rustle of leaves answered. My chest tightened with panic. I have to find him. As I started moving deeper into the woods, I recalled the way we laughed on hikes, joked under canopies of greenery. This was that same place, yet twisted by some malevolent force. The trees whispered my name, confessions wrapped in malice, echoing my fear. With every step, the shadows seemed to creep closer, their presence palpable. I could feel cold breath at my back, pressing me forward. But the deeper I went, the more I could hear them, the cries, the despair that seeped through the air. Matt's voice flickered on the edges of my awareness, tinted with desperation and fear. Help me, I chased the sound, zigzagging through tangled roots and thorny underbrush. With each footfall, I envisioned Matt trapped, just ahead, grasping for me in a world twisted by darkness. Stay with me, Matt, I shouted, ignoring the chill creeping up my spine. I'm coming. But the dark warmth of the shadow entities felt like a veil, ready to smother. Ahead, a flickering light cut through the gloom, a lantern, swaying gently, casting eerie shadows that danced like specters around me. I forced my feet to quicken, heart racing. Matt. But the crackling flame grew dimmer as I approached. The glowing lantern flickered one last time and went out, plunging me into darkness once more. I stumbled, nearly losing my balance. Adrenaline surged through my veins as I fought to catch my breath. Fear clawed at my throat, a tangible thing that threatened to choke me. No, please don't do this. A rustle behind me sent shivers racing down my spine. I turned sharply. Matt. Silence. Only the whispering shadows. And then, a movement, something slid past the trees, dark and sinewy, peeking from behind and disappearing quickly. Show yourself, I yelled, my voice echoing fiercely, though my heart threatened to give out. The shadows conspired, laughing amongst themselves as if thrilled by my fear. Then, another scream pierced the air, not Matt's. A woman's wail. Sounds of anguish that ripped through the night, sharp and raw. Who's there? I shouted against the breathless terror. She screamed again, and with it, I raced toward the sound. Driven by a mix of horror and determination, I felt as if the forest itself conspired against me, branches snagging at my clothing, pulling me back. Let me through. I fought against the terrifying grasp of the darkness. The terrain shifted, branches snapping underfoot as I barreled forward. I broke into a small clearing. The ground was littered with bones. And there, illuminated by an unseen light, stood a figure. Her face was pale, eyes wide. It was the woman from the scream, and she was reaching out, pleading. Help me, they want me, she sobbed, and her voice pulled me in, an abyss of despair threatening to consume me. Who? What want? I edged closer, guarded, but something primal inside urged me to help. The shadows. They'll take you too. She gasped, her eyes darting, haunted. A shadow lurked behind her, a monstrous shape just beyond the desolate glow. I stumbled back, terror clawing at every inch of me. This forest was alive with something dark, something hungry. Before I could escape, the ground shook, a low rumble that promised destruction. The very trees twisted, scenes of violence unfolding around me as the woman's mouth opened in a silent scream. Run, she mouthed, a desperate plea that ignited every instinct to flee. But where? The shadows surged, filling the clearing, hungry. I struggled against the fear threatening to paralyze me. What would it take to find Matt? The darkness shrouded me once again, and I felt it pulling me away, dragging me into the depths of despair. Look for the truth, the woman whispered, her voice fading, lost to the renewing darkness. In that fleeting moment, I understood I was on the brink of unraveling something much darker than I had anticipated. But what truth awaited me? And at what cost would I seek it? The ground quaked beneath Cassie's feet, the echoes of despair vibrating through her bones. Shadows twisted and churned, a murky mass of hunger and rage. Where are you, Matt? She cried, desperation rising like bile in her throat. Memories of laughter scattered like leaves in the wind, now replaced by the endless wails of the lost. She turned on her heel, racing through the shadows. The darkness clung to her, a shroud of malicious intent, whispering sweet promises and bitter lies. Help me. What was left of her resolve teetered beneath its weight. But she had to run. Had to. Matt needed her, and she would not rest until she unraveled the truth keeping them apart. Suddenly, the path ahead split into two, a dark corridor of yawning blackness, and another lit faintly by shimmering silver whispers. Cassie pressed her palm against her heart, feeling it hammer wildly. Following the light felt like a beacon of hope, but she could sense the shadows seething close behind, angry at her will to escape. Don't let them take you. The voice of the woman echoed within her, tightening her resolve. She had seen the faint glimmer of truth and faced the horrors cloaked in the forest's embrace. Cassie reached for the silver path, aware that the darkness would not give up easily. With each step, the light intensified and the shadows hissed, retreating slightly as if repelled by the illumination. Cassie burst forward, breathless, as the silver light enveloped her. She felt infused with energy, her fear transformed into strength. In this moment, whispers of encouragement thrummed in her ears, blending with the horrific screams of the tortured souls trapped around her. And then, she saw it. Ahead lay another clearing, the altar from her visions, surrounded by pithy shadows that writhed, reaching out with skeletal fingers. At the center stood the mirror, no longer reflecting just darkness, but shifting, pulsing with chaotic memories of those trapped within, including Matt. His face blurred, lost among the tortured figures swirling in a cyclone of despair. I'm coming for you, Cassie shouted, grounded by resolute determination. The mirror flickered, images playing within its depths, moments of joy, laughter, and warmth, but also deceptions and betrayal. It struck her the shadows spoke in riddles, not to deceive, but to confuse. Each lost soul, including Matt's, begged for uncovering, longed for acknowledgement of their truths. Break the cycle, she screamed. A surge of understanding washed over her. You want to take me, not this time. Sidestepping the grasping darkness, Cassie reached the mirror and slammed her fists against its surface. The glass shuddered and cracked, revealing the reflections of memories that burrowed deep within her own heart. Beyond the shattered illusions lay Matt's true essence, a flame flickering but alive. The shards of glass refracted the light, illuminating faces of those prisoners entwined in their agony. Join us, a chorus of whispers urged, a siren's song laced with despair. But Cassie stood firm, ready to rewrite their fate. I want to abandon my friend, she yelled into the vortex, the sound reverberating off the trees as shadows recoiled slightly, the force of her defiance rippling through them. Beneath the jagged edges of the mirror, she saw something, a glimmering thread that connected each soul, drawing their anguish together. With fierce determination, Cassie plunged her hand through the shattered surface. Grasping hold of the connected thread, the surge of energy coursed through her. The whispers grew louder, twisting and screeching, desperate to claim her. Release us, they called. Embrace the darkness. No, Cassie cried back, pulling harder on the thread binding them. It felt alive, thrumming with the pain of every lost moment, yet thrumming with hope too, a power waiting to be harnessed. With another powerful yank, clarity enveloped her mind as she shouted, I choose to fight. Light burst forth from the crack in the mirror, illuminating the clearing and driving back the shadows. Each soul began to surface, their whispers rising to a crescendo as they morphed into tendrils of light. Cassie felt the rush. Warmth spread through her, binding the tendrils together. Help us to break free, they called, their reflections shimmering before her. Then let us do this together, Cassie roared, her voice cutting through the din. She began weaving their energies, intertwining them into a singular thread of resilience. Together, with one final, forceful pull, she yanked the thread, unraveling the darkness that held Matt and the others captive. The mirror exploded, glass scattering like stars, while the tainted shadows screamed, dissipating into the night. In the midst of the chaos, the air began to clear, revealing Matt standing there, illuminated by soft, golden light. His eyes met Cassie's, filled with warmth and relief. "You did it," he breathed. "I knew I would find you," Cassie whispered, running into his embrace. The connection filled her with a fierce joy as the last remnants of darkness washed away and the tepid chill in the air faded. The forsaken spirits liberated now danced around them, transformed, their ethereal forms radiating light, a reminder that even the most haunted places can be reborn. "Thank you," Matt said, emotion thick in his throat as he looked toward the sky. "For believing." Cassie smiled, her heart swelling at the thought of all they had overcome. "And for not letting me give up." Together, they stepped away from the ruins of the mirror, hand in hand, ready to leave Maplewood and its dark secrets behind for good. The path ahead, once shrouded in shadows, now glowed with the promise of light and liberation. There was a home awaiting them beyond the whispers of the past, new beginnings, new trails to hike on, and fresh stories yet to be told. "Goodbye, Maplewood," Cassie murmured as they walked, leaving the weight of the cursed forest behind. Now the forest would whisper tales of freedom in the gentle rustling of leaves, and with the last remnants of darkness extinguished, the echoes would finally fade. But before that whisper could settle, be sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep us going. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.